Okay, here we go. Okay, hi everybody. So, this has been on my heart for a while now, since even before we came out with our Mind Body GLP-1 system. Just when we created this group, Mind, Body, and Spirit. I know, and I've learned so much just through being a part of LifeVantage and with our product, that your emotional health is foundational, really. It has so much to do with that. And I called on my dear friend here, Dr. Stormy Johansson. She is a chiropractor, but also does some other phenomenal work when it comes to emotional healing and emotional release. I've seen her do her work on my daughter, and it was just magnificent to witness. So I asked her if I could ask her a few questions and just bring to you guys her knowledge and what she has seen happen in her clients in doing emotional release. So, would you just explain to everybody? Because I know we have some people that while they're on this system, some are having success right away, some are plateauing, some are gaining weight. And I just feel like no matter what's happening, your body is telling you something. And can you just explain to everybody, like, just how impactful not dealing with emotions and how emotions can, what it can really have on our health and what it can
Yeah.
really do? I know you could probably
Yeah.
go on forever with that. That's a big question.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
And I love that you're aware to it.
Yeah.
And even with your daughter's experience, right? She had a wonderful, phenomenal change in her simply because we got to look inward.
Yes.
I think to start out and give you more of a bigger picture in talking about emotions, it can bring up a lot of different feelings. Some of us were raised and taught how to deal with emotions. Some of us weren't. Some of us were told you're crying too much. You're not allowed to feel. If you need to get over something, go get over it. Right. And that will create a different dynamic for each and every single person. So, giving this baseline to you that the body is so intelligent and it's going to heal itself if you give it the proper tools. So, emotions are all energy. Our bodies are energy. This chair is energy. Our cells have energy. We learned this in science class. When we experience something and the body is not ready or the mind is not ready to process and let the emotion that you're experiencing go, it will store it in a form of energy within the body. Now, usually we talk about this in terms of, is it in an organ or is it in the tissues? And a lot of times we see this, yes, within specific organs and tissues, but we also talk about it in terms of fascia. So the connective layer and the tissue around the muscle. And think about this: if you feel cold outside, right? And the shoulders go up to the ears and we're all bundled up, that's going to start to tense the muscle. Now imagine that feeling around the entire muscle throughout your whole body after you've just experienced something emotionally either traumatizing or emotionally unstable for you, right? It stays there, it stays in that position. But what I get to see in the office is when we hold on to these emotions and we're not processing through them, we get such a variety of effects in the body. And that can be anything from not sleeping well to anxiety to not being able to lose weight or gain weight. And it all comes down to, what are we holding on to? What stories have been told to us? What stories do we believe about ourselves? And if the body is showing us these signals, especially when we're talking about weight loss, weight can be a protective measurement for a lot of people. When we have a either childhood that was very challenging, or we have an adulthood experience that was very hard, like maybe losing a parent or maybe going through something with your own children, when we add weight to our body, the fat is actually a protective mechanism. So I know a lot of times we talk about fat as, oh, it's so unhealthy. It's so XYZ. It makes you feel bad, right? It creates this inflammation. Yes, and where is it coming from in terms of what is the body trying to process? And usually we see a trigger event that goes, oh, this is when I felt my best. Something happens, and this is when I started to gain weight. And so some people, especially going on this program, right? Some people are losing weight right away. their bodies are able to process through it. But if you're the person that's stuck and not seeing the changes, or are maybe having the opposite effects of taking something and you're actually gaining weight, there's a huge signal from the body and the subconscious mind that goes, listen, we got to address something here, because it's not just the weight in the body, it's something deeper.
Mm.
It's an experience. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. There's this saying that a lot of people have thrown around too, like your body's in fight or flight.
Mhm.
What does that mean?
Yeah. So if we think back to terms of fight or flight mode, we needed this. We absolutely needed it to run away from a saber-toothed tiger. It's a beautiful system, right? But back in the old days when we needed this to kick on, we had to have the muscles tense. We had to have the blood go from our limbs into our heart. We had to have the heart rate spike up so that way we could run away quickly, get to a safe space. But then when we were in a safe spot, then we could get into that rest digest state. In flight or flight mode, the biggest thing that turns off or turns down is your digestive tract. You're not
Mm.
going to be wanting to digest a sandwich as you're trying to stay safe away from a bear or a tiger, right?
Right.
Now, we're not running away from bears or tigers these days, hopefully not on the daily basis. But these stressors have shifted from being, oh, now my stress is driving down the highway. Now my stress is not getting the Christmas presents ready in time. My stress is I can't get up off of the couch because I'm so tired, right? Those are very different stressors. But when your body stays stuck in fight or flight and can't recognize the difference to shift out of that, you're not going to be able to turn on these processes a lot better for digestion, for having the ability to go to sleep, to get to that calm, relaxed state. We also know that when we're stuck in fight or flight, being able to handle or process emotions is virtually non-existent, right? Because your capacity is only so high. So if you're already up here with emotions that you've not been able to process in the past, on top of now your body is so physically stressed and emotionally stressed, your body's not going to want to let that go. It's
Mm.
protection.
How do we know, like, if our body's in fight or flight? How do we know, like, if our body feels unsafe or because if people are not dealing with their emotions, they want to continue to not deal with them. So,
Sure.
how do you know, and what are signs that you could think of that people
Mhm.
could be like, okay, it is time for me to go deeper with this. This is
Yeah.
more than just physical. What if this is emotional for me?
I think the biggest one, especially in women, we tend to lean more towards it's my hormones.
Yes.
But when we really sit down to think about, okay, is this a monthly cycle thing that I'm experiencing? Or have the past couple of months just been this level of I feel numb, or I start to tear up at anything and everything, or I feel as though I can't handle anyone else talking to me or me talking about something. I think that's the biggest sign is when people
Mm.
feel absolutely closed off to where they don't feel like talking. They feel as though they could cry all the time, but not know why, or getting into anxiety state, depressive state. Those are some major underlying ones. Obviously, we've kept this around the weight loss and weight gain and those types of things. Again, going back to that protection mechanism of
Mhm.
wanting to protect ourselves, right? All these processes are subconscious. So it's your subconscious programming in the background of your mind that's going to be running all the time. And until you're aware of what's going on or the emotions that may be stuck there, you're going to keep choosing the same things over and over because we like being right. We
Mhm.
like understanding and predicting. When things are unknown, it gets really hard for us. And
Mm.
so when we constantly let these programs continue to move on and keep going, that's when we get stuck there and don't get to move on and process. So having those signals and those clues, a lot of things, yes, we can attribute to how's our body health in general. But let's say you're already doing the things of I'm walking,
Yeah.
or I'm getting some good movement in, or I'm really eating better now that I've decided and chosen a different path, or I'm on this new supplement regimen, right?
Mhm.
If you're still staying and feeling like you're stuck in that mode, there's something deeper. There's a deeper layer, right?
Where should they turn to first? I mean,
Mhm.
for you, like I had you
Yeah.
right here in Boise. But I mean, if this is something and you're having an aha moment right now, but you're like, okay, well then what do I do next?
Mhm. Yeah.
What would be steps for people to take?
Yeah, there's a couple of different things that I always recommend for my people who aren't exactly here. And the cool part is I can do over the phone sessions. I didn't know if you know that or not.
No.
Yeah. So that's been
Okay.
great. I have a couple
Okay.
clients all
Okay.
over the US right now, which is amazing.
Okay.
However, if that's not available to you and not something that you are ready for, because we all have the times when we're ready to face things and sometimes that we're not, and that's completely okay. I like to go in towards breath work. And I'll give you something that's very simple. You take one hand over the back side of the other, so back like this, and you first start out underneath your collarbones. So let's say you're having a day where you just can't calm down, or there's a lot of things happening out in the world and you can't exactly let your body just be. I like to start with this, where you just breathe in, you can close your eyes, you can stare at the floor, you can do whatever you need. And you're feeling what that feels like. Now, it doesn't have to be something specific, but sometimes it's really easy to breathe, and sometimes it's really hard to breathe. But you're just going to take note of that. And then when you're ready, you move down underneath the breastbone and you do the same thing. And you breathe in and you feel and you see if there's a difference there. Usually there is, sometimes there's not. That's okay, either way. The third place is right on the belly button. And after you've gone through 3 places, you take one hand, put it on a place that felt really good or really open, and then take your other hand, put it on a spot that maybe felt a little more closed off. But what you're going to do and think about is you're just going to connect those 2 points together and allowing yourself to kind of just come back to that beginning moment. Now, this is something that it doesn't have to take very long. It's just a little practice to try to get your brain to say, I'm not living in the future. I'm not living in the past. I am right here. And these are the facts of what's happening in my life right now. The other thing I really love is journaling. And I know that journaling comes with maybe some trauma to some people. I've worked with that as well. But the biggest thing that I love about journaling is it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be something that we're writing for somebody else to read, right? This is just for you. And so if you're always seeing the journal prompts and don't really want to go into that, the best way that I say and love to start people out is you choose a word, whether it's an emotion or whether it's something that just pops into your brain, and you just focus on that one word and write as many things about it as you can. So yesterday I had a patient in here and we were talking about just one word of joy. And so having joy, and they were writing down all the things that brought them joy, that reminded them of joy. And as she was writing things down, she started to get into, well, why do I not feel joy? Where is this coming from? And so it's a really great way to just allow yourself to dig deeper underneath the surface level layers that you can practice on your own.
Wow, amazing.
Some simple.
So good. And it's giving yourself permission to
Mhm.
take the time to do those things too.
Right.
I'm not great at that. So we need to work on this. Could you please share with the group like some of the examples that you were sharing with me of women that have been stuck and
Yeah.
upon allowing themselves to actually open the door to heal
Yeah.
from past trauma, what you've seen happen on the other side?
Yeah, it's wild. It truly is wild. It's like magic. And the coolest one, physical wise, that we were just talking about is I had a gal who went through a gastric bypass surgery about a year before she came to see me. And she was losing weight, did really great, stalled out. And once we got under the surface layer of what made her gain the weight, what emotional state got her to the point that she was in, how it felt losing weight and being a different person, but still being the same person on the inside. That's very next day, she lost 4 pounds after just going to the bathroom, and her poo was black. So it's the wild things that we experience where we hold on to toxins, whether it's in our colon, our liver, our kidneys, our heart, what have you. The body is going to feel and experience what it needs to feel and experience. And it's either going to let it go or you're going to hold on to it. That was a pretty wild one.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is
So crazy to me.
yes.
What else? Can you think of anything else that, like, I just feel like that sums it up so well.
Yeah.
Um,
I think
yeah.
one thing too, especially when talking about emotions, is
Mhm.
that I brought this up at the beginning where sometimes it can be really hard to either think about emotions or know how to process them, or what does that even mean?
Or
Right.
let someone in to see. I mean, for me, when I think about dealing with my emotions, it's always I had an example once of I was traveling
Yeah.
and my ears would not like pop.
Mm.
And I was in California and I asked a friend who's a chiropractor, could you just adjust me and fix my ears? And as he was working on me, he started asking me all these questions. And I thought he was just going to focus on my ears, but I could feel him putting his hand in different areas in my tummy and whatnot. And he's like, oh, I see what you're doing. And what I was doing was like reflecting off of myself
Yeah.
and just like focusing on him because I felt so uncomfortable in the moment.
Right.
And he started asking me questions about like trauma I was going through in the moment in my life. And it brought up emotion, it brought up tears, like it will right now. But, and he said to me, he goes, you need to let yourself sit here and cry.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
even after he left, I'm like, I don't know if I know how to do that.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
I didn't allow myself to do it.
No.
I thought I need to get out here. I need to go back to where everybody else is. And I didn't allow myself to sit in it and process.
Yeah.
So I think that can be another thing too.
It can
That
be.
vulnerability can be scary.
It can be.
Yeah.
And that's part of an emotion as well, is vulnerability. When people are ready and when you're ready, sometimes we don't feel ready, but it happens.
Mhm.
I utilize muscle testing. So it shows up and the body will say yes versus no. It's a response mechanism. And I will be able to tell when people are ready, which is very cool. But just that example of allowing yourself and giving yourself permission, it's in every facet of our life.
Mhm.
Whether
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
losing weight, whether that is giving ourselves to expand in business, whether that's allowing ourselves to make more money, whether that's allowing ourselves to feel love and give love. There's so much permission that we don't realize that we need to give ourselves. And when we just constantly shut it down or are bottlers, right? Stuff, everything down. There's only so much that the body can pressurize and take before you get to that explosion point. We hear about those moments when you're in your 30s, 40s, 50s, the midlife crisis, right?
Mhm.
Think about how much has happened in your life from then and how much emotional trauma that may or may not have happened that you have either shoved down, pushed away because you had to keep going. But now you're in the season of my body's forcing me to rest, calm down, right? The biggest thing, yes, we can get body pains, but those are generally from what are we not paying attention to? Are we not slowing down enough to experience something? Are we not giving ourselves enough time to rest in this to let it heal? And again, the body's incredibly intelligent.
Yeah, when I hear all this too, like I think so many of us, especially with our new system, we want quick results and we just think like if I just looked better, if I just saw the scale move, that it would fix so many things and that you would be happier if the scale moves. But I mean, what Stormy's telling us too, like that's not always the answer, that because you may see the scale move, but are you still thinking in the body that you were in? Is that safer than this new body? And is this new body going to expect more of you? And are you prepared and ready for that?
Right.
Right?
When we go through very big transformations, it's incredible, right? You get the praise, you feel the praise. And at the same facet, we sometimes go inward and say, but I'm still the same person. And yes, I may have been changing things in my life, but Have I changed the way that my mindset is working? Have I changed the way that I feel about my own self? Am I actually proud of my own self, or am I just letting other people dictate that for me?
Mm,
And that can be a huge eye opener too, of when we have big transformations and maybe you feel yourself swinging back and forth. This could be with anything, right? It could be with relationships, it could be with financial situations, it could be with weight gain, weight loss. That pendulum swing back and forth generally tells us that there has been something that hasn't been addressed, that I either have a limiting belief about myself or a limiting belief about what I have been doing.
mm,
Yeah.
wow.
So
Oh, this is so nice.
I hope that helps.
Yes. What do
Uh,
you think are some good like next action steps? If somebody's watching this and they're like, wow, this resonates with me a lot, are
Mhm.
there like some key questions they could ask themselves to know if like they really do need to take the next steps?
Yeah, we all know ourselves best.
Mhm.
And so allowing and giving permission again to just be in that moment of, is there something deeper? That's the only question I want you to ask yourself right now. Is there something deeper?
Mm,
Is there something that I'm believing that isn't true about myself?
mm.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. This is so great.
Yes. Okay. Bye, everybody.